Welcome back to Feeding the Family with Dr. Kristen. I'm your host, Kristen Saxena. Are you looking to start meal planning or improve your meal planning, but feel a little bit overwhelmed by the resources that are available to you and how to use them? On today's episode, we're joined by Riley and Roni from Plan to Eat. Plan to Eat is a simple digital method for getting your meal planning on the first steps to success. Well, thanks for joining me, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So we have Riley and Roni with Plan to Eat. So Plan to Eat, for anybody who's not familiar, is really an app or electronic means that people can use to meal plan. And in addition, you two host the podcast, the Plan to Eat podcast that's associated with that company, correct?
We do, yes. Yep.
And how long have you guys been doing that?
So I've worked for Plan to Eat for 8 years, but we've been doing the podcast for about a little over a year. And then Roni, you've worked for Plan to Eat about 4 years. Is that right?
Yep, exactly.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow. And one of my favorite quotes that I've saw on the Plan to Eat website was they called it outrageously empowered meal planning. And I thought, well, anybody that doesn't want to get on board with that, that just sounds wonderful, right?
That's a more recent tagline that we've developed, but we certainly want people who use our program to feel like they can do it and that they get to take control of that in their household. And so that's kind of where that tagline came from. So
I love it because I think that, I think a lot of people when they first think of meal planning, it just sounds like, one more thing I have to do, one more chore. And I sort of love this concept of it's actually just you sort of taking the driver's seat in your daily life, in your week. And it really is a way that you can kind of empower yourself to feel like this is something I've got under control and that I can take care of myself and my family. And it kind of brings us to, we had chatted and we were talking in our last episode with Marcia Smart about meal planning. And in that episode, I feel like I came up with this brilliant idea of oh my gosh, meal planning is the perfect New Year's resolution. And I don't hear of anyone, I've never heard of anyone that was like, what's your New Year's resolution? But it's like, oh, meal planning, right? But I was like, oh my gosh, I really think it is because, if you think about the things that people say for their New Year's resolutions, they're like, oh, I need to eat healthier. I need to get myself organized. I need to start saving money. I really want to reduce the stress in my life. And we all do that. We walk into the new year and we're like, have these giant overhauls of our life that we're going to do. And I was like, oh my gosh, meal planning kind of is like this little thing that you can do. And it actually checks all of those boxes. And I love thinking of is there just something small I can do that has this enormous return on investment for me in my life? And I was like, meal planning. Why hasn't anyone ever thought of this? Or maybe you have. But for me, I was like, light bulb moment. I'm going to become the poster child for promoting this. So the other thing too is I'm a huge data nerd. I just love, research, and I'm big on facts and not feelings. Let's collect some data. So, I think we all think meal planning, that's great. Of course, that's something that would be good for me to do. But you guys at Plan to Eat have actually collected some data from your users. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've found with the research that you've done actually on your customers?
Yeah, so the last time we did our customer survey was actually in 2017. So we should probably redo a survey at this point to get a little bit more updated data. But in general, we were interested in the benefits that people were seeing from meal planning. Because like you said, it's not just planning out your meals. We fully believe that meal planning solves so many different problems in your life and just has a massive positive impact. So some of the things that we saw were that people were spending a lot less money on food every month. So our stat is that people were spending 23% less on groceries every month. So if you were spending $200 a person, you're then reducing that to almost $150 a person every month.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a big one. And I know right now we're all kind of trying to be budget conscious and think about that. So, and the thing is that it's just as simple as creating a meal plan. It's not like they were doing anything above and beyond creating a meal plan to see that. It's just that they were going to the grocery store with a plan in mind and items on their grocery list that allowed them to be intentional with the purchases that they were making. And that was the thing that saved them money, instead of just going to the grocery store and randomly piling things in your shopping cart.
Yeah.
They were buying things that actually had a purpose. Riley, would you like to talk about another one?
Yeah. Let me see. Roni, could you shoot over that stats page? Are you looking at it right now?
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've looked at this data.
That's okay.
We had an impressive number of people respond. We were overwhelmed with the number of people who were so compelled with meal planning in their day-to-day life and how much it impacted them. And so we were overwhelmed by the amount of people that contacted us. So, let's see. Another one of my favorite ones is that people just knew what was for dinner. 86% of people reported a decrease in anxiety about meals. I'm a mom, I have kids, and it can be overwhelming. Just one other thing of what's for breakfast, what's for lunch, what's for dinner, going to the grocery store, that whole process is incredibly overwhelming. And so the fact that 86% of people felt that they had reduced anxiety in their life in some way, to me is a huge win. Because if we can take away just some stress in someone's life, I love that.
And I think that that's huge and not necessarily something that people talk about. But like you said, 86% of people are noting yes, this significantly reduced the anxiety. And I think it's something you maybe don't think about, but it's constant, it's like people keep eating. You never get done feeding people.
Yeah, and everyone's to-do list every day is so long. And so to just feel like it's one more thing to feed everybody, just taking that away and being like, I know what we're having. I already bought all the ingredients. I just get to go make it now. That's a really big deal for a lot of people. And I think that spills over into other aspects of life. And so you can do other things when you're not spending time stressed about that. You can spend your brain energy on whatever else you want. So
right. Well, and I think that's the other thing too, is we've talked about that before, is it's like the decision fatigue that you get. Anyone, as a parent, as an individual, like a working person, all of it, you make decisions all day and they seem little, like, oh, I'll just decide what to eat, but it really does add up. And so I think that's huge.
Mm-hmm. And I would say when you're trying to make that decision for other people as well, if you're deciding what's for dinner for the entire family, that compounds that decision fatigue, because it's not just, this is just something that only affects me, it's affecting everybody in your house.
Right. And you will hear about it if people don't care for your choice.
Well, and this one really spirals into another one of our stats, which is that people eat better food when they have made a meal plan. Because I think when you're stressed about it and you just need something quote unquote easier and you're just wanting to reduce that stress because you didn't make a meal plan, you're going to resort to things that maybe you didn't really want to. Maybe that's eating out and spending more money and eating out and maybe eating something that's less healthy. Or you're, popping a frozen pizza in the oven. And there's honestly, there's nothing wrong with that sometimes. But when you default to that over and over and over again, it can just feel like even more of a burden, particularly if you're just trying to feed your family a really healthful meal. And so our stat around this one is that 73% of people increased their consumption of healthy food. And we know that eating at home just automatically is healthier because you're cooking it, you're using ingredients that you chose and things like that. So I think those two stats really go hand in hand, because the anxiety can lead to bad choices, and I hate to even use the word bad, just a choice you may not have wanted to make, which then leads to maybe spending more money and just some other things that you don't want out of choosing. I think just being more intentional about it makes you, those choices are usually just, even if it's just a little bit better, a fraction percent, you with your frozen pizza, you plan to have a salad. It's there because you planned it and you eat it, right. And it's just that much better. So I think that totally makes a lot of sense. And I think one of the other ones that I had saw was from your
users, 46% more had meals together at home. And I'm a huge fan of family meals and all the benefits of that. And so not even withstanding that, I mean, probably my real wish for everyone for New Year's would be that you eat more meals together as a family. But knowing that if you don't have a plan for that, that's less likely to happen as well, which spirals then again into all the benefits that come from the family meals, health-wise, but also just, mental health and outcomes we see for kids and adults alike, which I think really, again, this might be the ticket item, right? This is the one.
Well, yeah, that's probably one of our deepest core values at Plan to Eat. It's that we want people to spend more time together, doing what they love to do, eating together as a family, spending time with people they love, doing what they love to do. Because like you said, the mental health impacts of that are huge. Just the community aspect, just sitting down and looking at someone face to face and interacting with them over a meal is really special. And I think we've gotten a little bit away from that in our 2022. I almost said 2023.
Well, we're getting there.
We're getting there. And so this one was a really big deal for us, just to see the stat and see that what we're trying to do is really actually impacting people's lives. So we were really happy about that one.
Yeah, I think that brings up a good point that I haven't even really thought about in terms of for adults, with a lot more adults working virtually, remotely. Sometimes that might be the only time you sit down and face to face with other people, real life people. And I think that, that's something that we'll only know in the future. But I have to think that, again, the mental health benefits from that practice are going to be huge. Maybe even more so when you guys repeat your survey results.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was hoping, so I want to talk a little bit more about Plan to Eat itself, because I think that it's really it occupies a sort of unique spot in sort of this meal planning online space. And I had spoke with Marcia Smart about meal planning on our most recent episode, and she was a big pen and paper meal planner. And there was something very lovely about that because, she kept her stacks of meal planning journals for years and years and years, and they almost acted as a journal of her life, as she could see, moving from t-ball practice to college searches is how she would have to frame, her daily or her weekly menus. And so I definitely can see some nostalgic benefit to that. But on the flip side, I feel like more and more of us are moving away from a pen and paper lifestyle. And there's definitely something to be said for, having all of that information at your fingertips, like we all have, for better or worse, with our phones with us all the time. So that, if I'm at the grocery store, I'm sitting in the dentist's office or whatever, I have access to all this information at all times. And so tell us a little bit about, if you don't mind, sort of Plan to Eat and what it is and sort of how it came to be.
Well, so Plan to Eat is the things that you talked about that I'm guessing Marcia talked about, but just in a digital format. So we actually like to say that Plan to Eat is traditional meal planning simplified, because we take the ideas of using your own recipes and then creating your own meal plans. And then the program actually creates your shopping list for you. But it's all the same process that you would use if you're doing pen and paper planning. So like I said, it's all your own recipes. We don't provide recipes for our customers. We have the ability for customers to import recipes in multiple different ways, including, finding them online and being able to clip them and put them into the program, but also, manually typing recipes in that are, family favorites or ones that, grandma's recipes, those kinds of things. And then we also don't provide meal plans for people. It's all about creating your own meal plan that works for you and your family and your schedule. And then the best part is that the shopping list is made for you, because if you are a pen and paper meal planner, you might think that that's a really kind of a hassle of meal planning, is writing your own shopping list and making sure you have all the ingredients that you need, all the quantities that you need. And so to have the program do that for you, just really, it simplifies the process and it really makes it take a lot less time. So we kind of think of it as modernizing the older way of meal planning. So
I do love that, because it's almost sort of this like less is more concept, because I think, you know, in the past when I've looked at sort of meal plans online, or programs that I think kind of try to do the same thing, a lot of them, like you said, are sort of pre-populated with the plan and with the recipes. And it seems wonderful, like, oh, full service, everything's here. But I think it often falls apart because it isn't actually what your family does already. And, you know, in even if you are trying to meal plan or trying to improve your meal planning, the key to success is a lot of just starting where you already are, I think. And so I love this because it's caters exactly to, well, this is what we do in real life. And then from there, you know, if 3 times a week I'm used to planning the meals and I would love to do 5, well, I can start with 3, and 3 is fine. And I'll just throw in the 3 things that we eat every week. And then, you know, from there, it's like, all right, I've got this under my belt. We'll add in, you know, meal number 4, and meal number 4 will be something new I try off the internet or whatever. But I love that because I think that was always the hard part. Is it's like, well, this is a great meal plan, but, you know, Tuesday and Thursday are things we've never eaten. Plus, I've never cooked any of these things before. So even though it says it's going to take half an hour, it's going to take me 45 minutes, an hour, who knows how long, because I'm like reading every step and I don't really know what I'm doing. So I really like that a lot. And then how did this come to be?
So it really came out of need. The founder of Plant Eat, his name is Clint. He still works with us. You know, he's our direct supervisor, our direct boss. We're a really small team, so we all work really closely together. About 13 or 14 years ago, his wife, she just found herself in this position of stacks and stacks of recipe books, and she was trying to figure out how to be a better cook, but also they have 4 children, and she was trying to figure out how to feed all of these children, and just that part of her life was incredibly overwhelming. So Clint happened to be a web developer, and she asked him, like, please make this easier for me somehow. And so he built Plant Eat, and now it's certainly evolved over the years, but he built her a recipe book, a meal planner, and a shopping list. So she didn't have to sit there with pen and paper and consolidate, you know, 3 cups of chopped onions and 2 regular onions and 3 cups of milk and 2 cups of half and half, and, you know, and trying to consolidate this crazy shopping list. And so he built the program for her, and then realized how helpful it was for her and how it probably would be helpful for other people. And then it's just grown from there. And so he started offering it online, and then a paid version, and then it's just evolved until now we have an app and a desktop site also, and so you can meal plan from anywhere, and you don't have to be sitting at your kitchen table spending hours trying to do a meal plan. It's a lot more simple now.
That's amazing. And like you said, yeah, now that you've got it like the mobile version, or you've got it there, that way, you know, if you find like, oops, I have a little bit of time while I'm, you know, waiting for an appointment or whatever, you can quickly pull out your phone and do that meal planning. And I think that's awesome. And I think that those things that are just sort of like born organically out of real people's need, I think they tend to be the things that really resonate with people, because generally if you're having those issues, you know, you're not the only one. So I think that that's incredible. Yeah. I also think, you know, it seems like a very, what do I want to say? I mean, it's a very straightforward process. So I think the other thing with a lot of these things is you look at them and, you know, it becomes this membership fee that I lose track of, or, you know, you start getting targeted with a lot of other ads. And I was looking through, and it seems like Plan to Eat is not something like, they're very dedicated to making sure that this is just a simple thing that you sign up for. This is all you're signing up for. We're not going to try to sell you or sell your information to other people. It's just kind of good, honest salesmanship for real families.
I would say, oh, go ahead, Roni.
Oh, I was just going to say that our founder, Clint, really values transparency in our business, and just making it straightforward, and we try to not, you know, have tracking, and we don't sell information. Like, those are all things that are really important to him. So. Mm-hmm.
The only thing I was going to add is that, like, we're very customer first, and we wouldn't want our own data sold. And so we apply that same principle to the way that we treat our customers. So
So then what about you two? So like Clint, obviously he this is his baby and built out of, real problems he was having at home. So what motivates you two to get up and work and talk about meal planning on a regular basis?
Well, I think some of the things that we talked about earlier, I actually wasn't a meal planner before I started working for Plan to Eat. I guess I did it in probably a less concise way, a less streamlined way of just, wondering what was for dinner and then going to the grocery store and buying extra things and ending up spending too much money and all that kind of stuff. And so when I started working for Plan to Eat, it really kind of opened my eyes to like, wow, this is something that's like, it's really helpful. And it's helped me to, save a lot of money and save a lot of time every week. And so for me, it's just kind of those benefits are really motivating. And I really want other people who maybe haven't ever experienced those benefits to also see it too and just have that improvement in their life.
For me, it's interesting because I started so long ago and I also wasn't really a meal planner. But the reason that a lot of people come to Plan to Eat is because of a big life event. Maybe they're told their diet has to dramatically change, or they get married and suddenly they're the ones cooking for someone else. Maybe they have kids or people move in with them and they're the one who's doing all the planning around meals. And so I have had the experience with almost all of those. And so I've suddenly feel like not only do I know the program incredibly well because I've worked here for so long, I see the ins and outs. I know exactly what someone should do to do anything inside of Plan to Eat. But I've also had the experience of being our customer, of just like I've had these major life changes in my life happen. And so I understand the stress related to those things or the pressure, or just the overwhelm associated with why people start to meal plan. And so because I know our program so well, and because I've done this for so long, and I used to do customer support, so I talked to all of our customers all the time, and I knew what their struggles were. I knew what their hangups were. And so now I think my real motivation is just I get to help other people through those life changes. And I can see it from a bit of a higher view than some people can, because I am so intimately acquainted with our program. And so just, hearing someone's problem and saying, okay, well, here's how we can resolve that. Here's a baby step here, or here's a feature that would work for this thing that you have a need for. To me, it's really fun. It's a bit of a game sometimes to figure out how to help people with their specific situations. And so, Ronnie and I get to do that on the podcast. It's where a lot of our inspiration comes from, is how can we help people overcome fill in the blank, or how can we help people struggle through this process, or like you talked about in the beginning, just it being this wonderful New Year's resolution. Well, we all know that sticking to New Year's resolutions is really hard, right? And so what can we do? What can we say? What kind of tips can we offer people? What kind of motivation can we help them realize is there? It's the light at the end of the dark tunnel. You could save so much money on your grocery list. And if budgeting is your goal, like we can help you with that thing. And those kinds of wins motivate people to continue to do it. And so that my long-winded answer, that is why. That's my why. So
I love it. Well, and then we had mentioned you guys co-host the Plan to Eat podcast. So since you've been doing that for a little bit over a year, what is the coolest thing that you guys have learned on that podcast?
That's a great question.
That is a really great question.
A couple of things are coming to mind. One is, and maybe I'm sounding like, broken record, but meal planning really can help you out in so many areas of your life. And so it doesn't really matter who we're talking to, whether we're talking to a physician who helps their pediatric patients in some way, or we're talking to someone who works with people and their budget. Like, meal planning can help across the board. And so while I think I knew that, talking to people in so many different spheres of life, you start to realize, like, it just reinforces it. And it comes up in every aspect. Like, this is a tool that can actually help you. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I would say kind of like related to that, it's just that I didn't think that I realized how much there was to talk about with meal planning before we started the podcast.
Right. You're like, we're going to do a whole podcast about this.
Yeah. And granted, we've had some conversations go in, little tangential ways, but it's pretty amazing to, dissect one topic for over a year and feel like we're just scratching the surface at this point, even.
Right. Well, I think it really highlights the way that it's really our regular habits that sort of determine the quality of our life. And so the things that seem sort of mundane and just like not exciting, you wouldn't think to talk about, are actually like what create the quality of life that we have on the daily basis. So I think you're exactly right. When you start to unpack and you're like, oh, it's sort of these little simple things I do that set myself up for success in so many other arenas of life. So I think that's really cool. And I love your podcast. It's lots of fun.
Thanks.
So lastly, I'm sure lots of people are listening to this and they're saying like, this sounds amazing. They're all going to choose meal planning as their 2023 New Year's resolution, change their life. So what is the best way to get hooked up with Plan to Eat?
Well, they can go to planteat.com. We have lots of signups on that page. You can find more information about Plan to Eat on our website. We offer a free trial as well. So people can get started with a free trial and see if Plan to Eat is the right meal planning service for them. We understand that it might not be for everybody. Some people might want their recipes given to them or their meal plans given to them, in which case that's okay. We want people to meal plan no matter what. So we know that we're for a specific group of people who, are maybe transitioning from that pen and paper meal planning. But planteat.com, we also have a Facebook page, an Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, all of the places we are Plan to Eat.
You can also find us in the Apple App Store and the Android App Store. So whatever your device is, you can also download and get your free trial through that.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. It's really been fun.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of Feeding the Family. If you're loving these episodes and finding them useful, be sure and tell a friend. Word of mouth is the best way that we get new listeners. And as always, make sure that you join us next week for another great episode.